Hi, I am Sally Lucian, and I am a rape survivor.
Hello, I am Danielle Henderson, friend of Sally Lucian and psychologist.
We are here with you today because we would like to talk to everyone about trauma responses. Trauma is an emotional response to a terrible event like an accident, a rape, a natural disaster, or loss of a loved one. And we are focusing on rape trauma today.
Yes, excited I can be here with you,
Me too.
Sally.
Me too. I think you will bring a lot of good to this conversation today. Um, One thing that I would like to start out is just to let people know that the initial reactions to trauma can include exhaustion, confusion, sadness, anxiety, agitation, numbness, disassociation, confusion, physical arousal, and blunted affect. Most responses are normal in that they affect most survivors and are socially accepted, psychologically effective, and self limited. So, what do you ask me
Okay, so Sally, if you don't mind sharing,
that? Sure.
what has your trauma response looked like for you?
I have had several, and I think the key is actually recognizing your own trauma response as a response to trauma and not something that you've learned over the years or something that your mother taught you or something like that, because that is not what this looks like. It is actually your personal reaction. Like if you have lost a loved one, we all know that that's very hard to talk about. Things like that, those kind of things we actually know. um, One example for me would be that I had slept with a nightlight for over 25 years. And so one year I just decided that I was not going to do that anymore. And I was going to see if I could sleep in the dark. And once I started making myself sleep in the dark,
Hmm.
then today I don't sleep with a nightlight anymore.
Wow. I think, one thing that comes to mind for me and that could be helpful for others is, with that example you just shared, can you talk a little bit about how you knew you were ready to take that step to, that night no longer sleep with the nightlight? How did you know you were ready?
You would attempt it over and over
Okay.
until, so maybe I got to the point where I would turn it off,
Okay.
and then I'd lay down, and I was my anxiety level would lift, and here I was trying to go to sleep, so I would have to get up and turn it back on again.
Okay. Okay.
And
Okay.
it's trial and error.
Okay.
You just
Okay.
keep testing and just keep trying until you get to the point where you actually can do it.
Okay.
So I wanted to stop,
Mm-hmm.
but then it still took me a very long time before I could stop.
Okay. No, I think that's really helpful because sometimes when people talk about things that they've been able to do, it can sometimes feel as if you know that just happened,
Right.
very quickly. It was I made up my mind to do it and I did it, and no problems after that. And for some people, that is their experience. But like you're sharing, I was like, no, I knew I wanted to do it, but I had to work up to it and do what we would call like essentially kind of like some exposure therapy in a way,
Correct.
to that. And then eventually I was able to do it. So I know I think that's a really good message that it might take some time. Um,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes. And just don't quit. Just keep doing it, because eventually you will get there. I know that in my heart that you will. So, other things were, I had to always have, I couldn't have a pretty shower curtain because it had to be just the clear liner,
Mm.
because I needed to always, I'm always vigilant. I'm making sure that nothing's going to happen to me. So I needed to always see out, and didn't even realize that's what I was doing for many, many years. I mean, I knew what I needed, But then I kept thinking, but I want a pretty shower curtain like everybody else, has. So, um, and then another thing that I would do is I would sleep with my clothes in my
Okay.
clothes. And I did that for probably over 25 years as
Mm.
well. Because I was always ready. I needed to be ready. I needed to, my rape occurred when I was asleep in my home. A stranger broke in, so I did not know that I would not ever feel safe anywhere until that happened. And then I didn't. So the whole fact of me being in my clothes, I knew I could jump up and be ready, if this would ever happen again. Because I think once it happens to you the one time, then the rest of your life, you just feel like you always have to be, protecting and just, very aware of things. So that takes it to the extreme to sleep in your clothes. However, if that's what made me comfortable, that's what I had to do.
Mm-hmm.
So that is a very slippery slope for people because they just, you know, um, sometimes they're not aware that actually they could be happier, they could be
Mm-hmm.
better off, they could, you know, normal. You just want to be like everybody else who sleep. And again, people sleep in the nude. All different ways for all different reasons. But for me, it was just something that I knew eventually I would need to stop doing
Mm.
because I was doing it because of my trauma.
Got it.
And that was the only reason why.
Yeah.
I think when you get to the point where you can, you can recognize I'm doing this because of my trauma,
Mm.
not because of any other reason, but because of my trauma. And then I think once you get to that point, then you're able to clearly start thinking of ways to work through it, work past it,
Well.
because like they say, you got to go through it to get through it. So,
Mm-hmm. No.
that's kind of what I was doing there for sure. So, what we are talking about is how to recognize your behavior for your own self, and it has been affected by your trauma. So I think that's very, very important. Another thing that I can bring up is that for me, I was also beaten. So, I was beaten in the face. So I have this shield up,
Mm.
that nobody can get within this area. And I didn't know how extreme it was until I was playing cards, sitting at a round table with best friends. And they would go to raise their hand to put their card in the middle.
Mm.
And as soon as they would do it, I mean, I did this.
Wow.
And when I did that, I started crying because it made me sad to think that I couldn't even act in a card game,
Mm-hmm.
to people that I actually loved, let alone if any person, would get close to my face or something like that. So there's just a lot of, hopefully, people will be able to see um, that there are a lot of different things that you do and how you act that not necessarily are, you're not being yourself by doing that. It's again, it's caused, from your trauma. Um, and once you can understand that and recognize it, then you can do something about it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's really important.
Yes.
I want to read something that it also, trauma will give you increased vigilance, and it is a very common response, and that is so true because, I always called myself an owl, because I was
Mm.
always,
Mm-hmm.
like my perimeter was
Mm-hmm.
constant, but it includes feeling on guard, jumpy, jittery, shaky, nervous, on edge, being easily startled, and having trouble concentrating or sleeping. Continuous vigilance can lead to impatience and irritability. So again, if you are someone that becomes irritable, maybe it's not because of the people that are around you that are making you irritable. Again, it's your trauma. So if you can recognize your trauma, then you can look at it in a totally different way.
Mhm.
Um, and it also can lead to you not sleeping. When I when this first happened to me, I was actually pregnant for my youngest son, and I had two little children. So being sleep deprived was just part of that's just what you do.
Mhm.
So I didn't know if I was sleep deprived because of what I had gone through or because of my children. And again, you would treat those differently when thinking of how to get better at that. Because if you're sleep deprived, who isn't? When they have little ones. Um, so you think, well, this is what everybody else does, when in fact you could be sleep deprived due to the fact that you're just it's your emotions, it's your head telling you that things aren't good or
Mhm.
things like that. So
Mhm.
so again, it's really important if you recognize why you're doing what you're doing. It's a lot easier to then figure out how to treat that.
Yes. Yeah. No. So a couple of things that I'm thinking as I'm listening to you talk is, with the sleep. I have a fair amount of people talk about sleep as hard because like I can't be hyper vigilant
Correct.
because my body is supposed to be at rest, and so kind of like wrestling with that. And then for some people they might have bad dreams or
Correct.
nightmares about the trauma, or a nightmare, a bad dream that's informed by the trauma in some way, and so that can make it hard
Mm-hmm.
to want to go to sleep,
Right.
because you feel like, well, I know the minute I close my eyes, I'm just going to be, seeing those images
Correct.
again. And so, no, yeah, sleep can be very, very hard. And another thing I'm thinking a lot about that you've already kind of hit on is awareness, bringing into awareness
Yes.
why why am I experiencing what I'm experiencing. And I talk to people a lot about, sometimes the first step is just bring becoming aware and
Correct.
finding these connections. And like you said, is it because of, no, that's just how I am, that's my personality, or
Mm-hmm.
is it, no, that's, I think, due to my trauma. And just being able to kind of tease those things apart, figure out how that works for you, is often like step one. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one other thing that I wanted to touch on before we go is how if I've been triggered by something, or if I just can't get it out of my mind, I'm not able to sit down and watch a new movie, even if it's comedy, doesn't matter what it is, because it's just very important to me. I will watch the same movie over and over because I know exactly how it ends.
Mm.
Um, and for years, I did not know that me not liking surprises, I thought that was me.
Mm.
Even though I hadn't been like that before, you kind of forget what you were like before.
Mm.
And so I was like, okay, I think that this is maybe I just never really liked surprises, but I really did
Mm.
until this
Interesting.
happened. And then now it's like it's hard to surprise me because I that scares me. It and
Mm-hmm.
if you're out there and you are like that too, then to me this is just part of dealing uh, with the trauma and recognizing that that's what that is. It's not me. I do love surprises and stuff like that, but again, I will continue to watch the same thing just because I know how it ends.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of people, it's not just with movies either. It's other scenarios that they could maybe think of that they are doing in their life where they think, oh, that's why I'm doing that. I have talked to a few people, a few survivors that they watch like the shows with oh, like Dateline or
Okay.
something like that.
Okay.
And so one of my friends said to me, I don't know why I watch those. And I said, well, I know why you watch those. You watch those because it's a success that you don't have. Because my rapist was never caught, was never held accountable. And so, we watch these things because we're happy for the people that
Mhm.
get resolution to whatever happened to them. And we're like their little cheerleaders on the side going, oh, we're happy for you. Didn't happen for us, but,
Mhm.
it really. So I was kind of surprised at how many survivors I do know that do actually watch, cop shows or things
Mm.
like that. Just because, again, they save that person in the
Mhm.
show, and so then we are happy about it,
Yeah.
even though we can't be happy in our own situation, at least we are able to be happy with others. So
Yeah. No, that's a good point. And again, another thing I'm thinking about with knowing, like being aware, is thinking about anniversaries.
yeah,
So, sometimes people I've talked to or worked with have maybe an increase in their trauma symptoms or what have you, and initially aren't quite sure why that might be. And then once we get to talking about, okay, remind me again of when that happened, or are there other anniversaries associated with that traumatic experience, then sometimes, that can be an explanation for
correct.
the increase in symptoms. And so I think being aware of, yeah, the anniversary of when your trauma happened to you, and then also thinking about, like you said, other triggers. I know sometimes smells can
Yeah,
be a big one, or sight, the
sounds. Yeah,
sounds, hearing certain sounds, seeing things that, certain colors that may remind you of a color that was present
right,
during your traumatic experience, or
right.
all kinds of things. So it can be music,
Yeah,
sometimes will remind us of, a situation in our life where, associated with a trauma or a person who perpetrated the trauma against us. And so just kind of, yeah, thinking about all of these things that might be triggers that you
mm-hmm.
might not think about or be
Absolutely,
aware
absolutely.
of. Yeah. And then, yeah, anniversaries is a big one. Mm-hmm.
I call it my trauma anniversary.
Okay.
And there's never been a time where I've not thought about it, but of course it has lessened over the years. But and hopefully that's what's happening to other people as well.
Yeah.
So
How do you, if you don't mind asking, how do you care for yourself around that time? Maybe that the day of, the week before, the days after that date for you. How do you try to care for yourself or make a plan for that date, if you will?
well, me personally, I become more of an advocate
Okay.
during that time
Okay. Okay.
where I want to help other people,
Okay.
and that makes me feel like I'm doing something that kind of fulfills all that in a good way.
Mm-hmm.
And so because I'm doing something else like that, then it can come and go, and things like that. So I also have a very good friend that had a son born on that day,
Well.
and I was so excited because I thought now every year it'll be his birthday.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've used things like that, so there are little things that you can do, for sure. So
No, I appreciate that insight that you're sharing with people and those tips, because I talk a lot sometimes, about that date
sure,
is on the calendar. We can't, unfortunately, we can't remove it from the calendar. It's gonna come, and so as best we can, let's make a plan for it, and figure out, how we want to try to cope and care for ourselves, love on ourselves on
absolutely,
that day.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Self care for me always felt like I was being selfish.
Mm.
And I had to work through that to feel like, no, I'm caring for myself. That is not selfish. And, again, it's just flipping your mind,
Mm-hmm.
which no, it's not that easy. If it was, I would have already been through this 33 years ago. But, it is sometimes when your mind does flip like that, though, then usually for me, it doesn't ever go back to the way it was before. So
Mm-hmm.
that gives you, that lets you know that you can get better and you can do better, see better, things like that, because you need to have that hope that, it certainly will get better, but it's a lot of work. You have to put in the work.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot just let it try to happen to you. You have to do the work. So if anybody out there would have any questions for us, been more happy for you to let us know, and we can answer it. If you have, if something that we have said has made you feel like something that you didn't know before, please reach out and let us know, because that's really why we're here today, is that we would like for everybody to know that recognizing your trauma response is really your first step in taking those little baby steps to heal yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So um, I'm hopeful that we have reached out to the people that we need to be talking to. So
Okay. Well, this has been a pleasure.
it
Thank you
has, it has.
for being so open and sharing of your story.
You
So,
are welcome. You're
okay.
welcome. Bye.
Bye.